right until you do wrong. Then it comes in on you with all its power. Therefore, right is not a tyranny. Right is a simple action in conformity with the rules of the game of life. It is the keeping the rules and enjoying the result of good citizenship. The moment the individual becomes a bad citizen, then the laws of the eternal nature come in upon him with all their destructive and miserable reactions. But they do not come in unless we break them. We do not know of evil while we do good. We do not know of ignorance while we are naturally wise. All the artificial achievements which we image too highly slip away, but the integrities remain forever. And those who keep in harmony with these integrities live at peace with themselves. And this is the beginning of living in peace with the world. Now we take the human body and we say that it is a regulator of all the affairs of nature. We study the human body in terms of ancient philosophy, and we find that even the early physiologists were pretty well acquainted with this particular problem. They knew, for instance, all about the 12 wise men on the top of the mountain. They realized the 12 apostles, all these things, and they realized that there are 12 convolutions of the brain in the ancient mountain on the top of the great hill, that the mysterious world of Brahma is on the shoulders. In the tabernacle of the Jews, it is laid out, instead of rising, it retires into the depths. Here again, you have the 3 steps of retirement, and in the end, in the Holy of Holies, the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant consists of angels with their wings meeting over the mercy seat. These wings of the angels are again the convolutions of the brain. And between them rises the flame of the Shekinah's glory. For when the Lord came to bring messengers to his priests and his prophets, he appeared as a great light upon the mercy seat. The mercy seat is the 3rd ventricle of the brain. The glory of the Lord is the flame that blazes out between the pituitary body and the pineal gland. Every part of the philosophical and religious mystery is actually performed in the secret parts of the human body. We find also that the human body, with the brain above it, the spine, which is the whip of the small cord, the 33 segments of the spine are the 33 years of the life of Christ, and are the 33 years which required to complete the temple. Also, these small filaments of spinal cord at the base are referred to as the whip of small cords, with which Jesus cast the moneylenders out of the temple. All of these things have their physical, bodily equivalent and are perfectly balanced. We know that the diaphragm supports the Mount Moriah on which stands the Temple of Solomon. We know that the vagus nerve is the great river of life. We know all these things. And for instance, we know that there is the anatomy now refers to certain small growths at the base of the skull at the back as the pyramids. It knows that the outer cover of the brain is the dura mater, the rough or strong mother, and the inner covering is the pia mater, or the very subtle and gentle mother. All these terms are used in anatomy. Every one of them can be tied back to some religious fact, because they pertain to facts and circumstances that are unchanging. Everything that is inside of us is a miniature of everything that is outside of us. And when we begin to realize that, we also realize that all the false glories, all the crimes, and all the corruption are massive physical enlargements of the bad habits that are continually fluttering around in our own subjective lives. So we try to work with all of these problems, knowing that the first problem we have is this physical body, that we want to live in it as long as we can, and as helpfully and happily as possible. And that to do this we must do what we can. No one will do it perfectly, but we'll do what we can to make it not only a useful body, but dedicate its use to some purpose beyond the wasting of time. That there is always something to be done, that a body should be built in the mother's womb, should go through all of this mysterious transformation, pass through all the kingdoms of nature in miniature, and finally become born into this world in great pain and travail. That all this should happen. Then it should start and grow up and go through all the problems of becoming an adult out of the stress and pressures of our modern environment. And what does it do when it has accomplished everything? It takes on narcotics and kills itself. This is not what was intended. And there is no way in which this type of thing can ever produce forgiveness of sin, because it is not a forgivable sin. The sin is very different. This is simply an individual who actually doesn't know or doesn't believe that he has any purpose in life other than to try to stay here in some way as long as he's comfortable. These things have to be built in. And why do we say they have to be built in? Because they are part of the science of the human being, which means they are part of the science of medicine, but they are the part of physiology, psychology, anthropology. They are part of all the systems of work that have to do with the well-being of the individual. And every day today there are new problems created. These problems probably will not be corrected by use of memory. They will be corrected only by the use of the mind in a proper way to solve the difficulties which have resulted from using the mind in the wrong way. It must be used as it was intended. So we find health not to be divided from wisdom. And the functions of the body are one with our love for God and our fellow man. There is no way in which hate can ever produce anything but trouble. And while we hope that it's going to trouble somebody else, it always finally troubles us. So little by little, we become aware of psychical or physiological the mysteries relating to the body. We realize that it is something that can be incredibly important, that we can produce in this world leaders who will protect us and guide us and help us all to attain the fullness of our manifestation. It can produce families of people who really understand each other and who are willing to sacrifice together for the common good. It will produce those who are willing to labor for peace and suffer as necessary to overcome the dissonances of war. All things can happen if we release into manifestation the basic potentials of the human being. And to do this, we have to realize that we are constantly being injured in even the simplest things we want to do right. It isn't always possible for us to know what is right. We can only know what we are told unless we do some thinking. If we are willing to hope that somebody who claims to be an authority can speak for us, then we have to take the chances. It's exactly like the probabilities of finding a good bookkeeper or a good doctor. All these things have to be either done by ourselves or else they have to be delegated. And if they are delegated, we have to expect a certain amount of imperfection or incompletion. Ultimately, everyone must lead his own life into the good world we all hope for. In the meantime, however, it is necessary to recognize the basic facts of life. I had a letter not long ago from someone who is trying to improve by the use of new and religious ideals now current, and wants to know if certain groups are legitimate and certain groups are telling the truth, and if it's all well in the religious world. Well, it's practically impossible to answer questions of that nature. No one knows really how good anything is except the person who creates it. If the individual who creates something does so for the common good, it will probably be good. If he will create it for the good of himself or profit, it will probably not be good. These are rules that we all have to face. Now we also have owe something. We owe something to the earth beneath our feet to help this